Hello, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share a brand new story every day. If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive into today's story. On a frosty January night in 2014, Jake Collins, a dedicated military officer, and his best friend, Sam, embarked on a daunting 800-mile journey from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Louisville, Kentucky, where Jake was set to be married. The night was bitterly cold, with temperatures plummeting to negative double digits, making the journey even more perilous. Jake and Sam were bundled up in their warmest gear, but the chill still seeped through, turning the drive into a test of endurance and resolve. As they neared Louisville, the pair faced an unexpected dilemma. They had miscalculated their finances and were running dangerously low on fuel, with no money left to refuel the car. Jake, recalling his childhood experiences traveling with his father, who was a truck driver, suggested they find a truck stop. However, due to the severe weather, the main highways were shut down, forcing them to navigate the back roads in search of a refueling station. The roads were treacherous, covered in ice and snow, and visibility was poor. The howling wind rattled the car windows, creating an eerie symphony that only added to their anxiety. They drove in silence, both men lost in their thoughts, the only sound being the crunch of tires on the icy road and the occasional shiver-inducing creak of the car's suspension. After what felt like an eternity, they finally stumbled upon a small, isolated truck stop nestled in the woods. The eerie stillness of the place was unsettling. Only one truck was parked there, a blacked-out rig with no distinguishing marks, adding to the ominous atmosphere. Desperate for help, they ventured inside, hoping to find someone who could spare them a few dollars for gas. The diner inside was surprisingly tidy, with a warm, inviting glow from the overhead lights. A waitress, a cook, and a solitary truck driver were the only occupants. The truck driver, a burly man with a kind smile, waved them over. Jake approached him, explaining their predicament. The trucker, a kind-hearted man, bought them coffee and listened to their story. After a half-hour conversation, he generously handed Jake $20 for gas. Grateful, Jake and Sam refueled their car, promising to return and repay the kindness. Upon reaching Louisville, they withdrew cash from a bank and drove back to the truck stop later that morning to fulfill their promise. When they arrived around 10 a.m., they were shocked to find the truck stop boarded up, looking as if it had been abandoned for decades. The mysterious truck was nowhere to be seen. Confused and disbelieving, they pulled into the lot and encountered a police officer. They recounted their strange experience, to which the officer chuckled and replied, "Oh, you met the ghosts of the Blue Ridge truck stop." Stunned, Jake and Sam learned that the truck stop had been closed for over 25 years. The officer explained that many locals believed the diner was haunted by the spirits of 3 people who had died there in a tragic accident many years ago. Despite being rational military men, Jake and Sam couldn't deny the surreal encounter they had experienced just hours before. Determined to uncover the truth, Jake and Sam returned to Louisville and began researching the history of the Blue Ridge truck stop. They discovered an old newspaper article detailing a fatal accident involving a truck driver, a waitress, and a cook who perished in a fire that engulfed the diner late one night. The article included photographs of the victims, and to their astonishment, the faces matched those of the people they had interacted with the night before. Driven by a mix of curiosity and respect, Jake and Sam decided to honor the memory of the lost souls. They organized a small memorial service at the now abandoned truck stop, inviting locals who still remembered the tragic event. They shared their eerie experience and laid flowers at the site, hoping to bring peace to the spirits who had helped them in their time of need. Over the years, the story of Jake and Sam's ghostly encounter became a local legend, passed down through generations. The Blue Ridge truck stop, though still abandoned, was no longer seen as a place of fear, but as a testament to the enduring kindness of the human spirit, even in the afterlife. Jake and Sam's journey taught them that sometimes the most inexplicable experiences can leave the most profound impact, forever altering their perception of the world and the mysteries that lie beyond. Jake Matthews, a longtime resident of Salem, Massachusetts, loved taking leisurely drives with his 3-year-old daughter, Lily. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, they set out on one of their scenic drives. Lily, with her cherubic face and boundless energy, was happily singing nursery rhymes in the back seat. Their route that day took them past Old Oak Cemetery, a quaint burial ground known for its beautifully maintained gardens, modest headstones, and vibrant floral arrangements. To the casual observer, it looked more like a picturesque park than a resting place for the dead. As they approached the cemetery, Lily's singing abruptly ceased. Jake glanced in the rearview mirror, concerned by the sudden silence. Lily's eyes were wide, and she was pointing towards the cemetery. "Look at all those people, Daddy!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Jake slowed the car and looked in the direction she was pointing. To his surprise, he saw nothing but the usual rows of flowers and plaques. Puzzled, he asked, "What people, sweetie?" "All those people over there," Lily insisted. "There sure are a lot of grandmas." A chill ran down Jake's spine. He felt an unsettling shiver as he scanned the cemetery once more, seeing only the empty garden. "What are they doing, Lily?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass," she replied, her tone as matter of fact as if she were describing a playground. Unnerved, Jake decided it was best to head home. He pressed the accelerator a bit harder, eager to leave the eerie scene behind. The rest of the drive was uneventful, but Jake couldn't shake the image of his daughter's serious expression and the strange comment about the grandmas. Later that evening, while Jake was preparing dinner, he heard Lily's voice from the living room. She was watching her favorite cartoon but seemed distracted. "Daddy," she called out, "you know, they weren't alive." Jake walked into the room, a frown creasing his forehead. "What do you mean, Lily? The people on TV?" "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "Those people we saw, they were all paused." Jake couldn't sleep that night. His daughter's words echoed in his mind, and he wondered if she had some sort of sixth sense or an overactive imagination. The next day, he decided to do some research on Old Oak Cemetery. He discovered that it had a long history dating back to the 1700s and was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of those buried there. Intrigued and a bit anxious, Jake reached out to a local historian named Eleanor Whitman. Eleanor had spent years studying the cemetery's history and its supposed hauntings. When Jake recounted Lily's experience, Eleanor listened intently, her eyes widening with interest. "Many people have reported seeing apparitions in that cemetery," she said. "Most commonly, they see figures that seem to be looking for something or someone. Children, in particular, seem to have a knack for seeing what adults cannot." A few days later, Jake decided to return to the cemetery, this time with Eleanor. They walked through the rows of headstones, Eleanor pointing out various historical markers and recounting tales of the people buried there. As they reached the older section of the cemetery, Jake felt a strange sensation, as if he were being watched. "Lily said they were all paused," he murmured to Eleanor. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "Spirits often linger when they have unfinished business or a strong attachment to the living world. It's possible that what Lily saw were spirits caught in a moment of their past." Back at home, Jake sat with Lily and asked her to describe the people she saw again. This time, he recorded their conversation. Lily described the figures in more detail, mentioning their old-fashioned clothes and how they seemed sad. As Jake listened to the recording later, he felt a sense of urgency. He contacted Eleanor again, and together they delved deeper into the history of those buried in the cemetery. They discovered a tragic story about a fire that had claimed many lives in a nearby nursing home several decades ago. Many of the victims were buried in Old Oak Cemetery. Determined to help, Jake and Eleanor held a small memorial service at the cemetery, hoping to bring peace to the restless spirits. They read the names of the deceased, laid flowers on their graves, and lit candles in their memory. A few days after the service, Lily no longer mentioned seeing people in the cemetery. Jake felt a sense of relief, believing that perhaps they had helped the spirits find peace. Years passed and Lily grew up, the memory of the cemetery fading with time. Jake often wondered about that strange day and whether his daughter truly saw something beyond the veil of the living world. He never spoke of it to her again, but every time he passed Old Oak Cemetery, he couldn't help but feel a quiet reverence for the whispering shadows that once lingered there. In the end, whether it was a child's imagination or a glimpse into the supernatural, Jake learned to respect the mysteries of the past and the possibility that some spirits, like memories, never truly fade away. The Mount Haven Hotel in Ashford, New Hampshire, has stood majestically for over a century, originally built as an opulent retreat for the elite seeking respite amidst the serene mountains. Its grand architecture and luxurious amenities once attracted the wealthiest visitors from far and wide. However, as decades passed, the hotel's popularity waned, and by the 1970s, the splendid establishment had fallen into disrepair. It was during this period that renowned author Samuel Kincaid spent a night at Mount Haven, drawing inspiration for his iconic horror novel, The Haunting. The success of Kincaid's book and the subsequent blockbuster film rejuvenated the Mount Haven Hotel, drawing hordes of guests eager to experience the place that inspired one of the most terrifying stories of all time. Given its storied history, it was no surprise that tales of supernatural occurrences abounded among the guests. Fascinated by the ghostly rumors, Texas resident Robert Lee decided to book a spontaneous trip to Mount Haven in the spring of 2016. Upon his arrival, Robert was captivated by the hotel's timeless charm. After enjoying a delightful dinner, he roamed the hotel's corridors, camera in hand, eager to capture the essence of the historic landmark. As he reached the grand staircase, he paused, waiting for the area to clear before snapping a photo. Later that evening, back in his room, Robert was struck by a sudden and severe illness. "I felt really sick, with chills and an overwhelming sense that something was terribly wrong," he recounted to a local news outlet. Despite his companion's insistence that he visit the emergency room, Robert chose to stay in the hotel, hoping the feeling would pass. The following day, as Robert made his way back home, he idly scrolled through the photos he had taken. One image in particular caught his attention: a ghostly figure standing on the staircase. The eerie part was that he remembered the staircase being empty when he took the photo. Intrigued and unsettled, Robert shared the photo on Instagram, playfully suggesting that he might have captured a ghost. To his astonishment, the post quickly went viral. Media outlets and paranormal experts from around the world clamored to examine the mysterious image. "Some experts claim there are two ghosts in the photo," Robert explained, "and others theorize that my sudden illness was caused by the ghost trying to materialize, drawing energy from me." The myriad of theories left Robert both amused and bewildered. News of Robert's encounter reached Sarah Donovan, a seasoned paranormal investigator with a keen interest in the Mount Haven Hotel. Sarah contacted Robert and proposed a thorough investigation of the hotel. Eager to uncover the truth, Robert agreed to accompany her. Sarah and her team arrived at Mount Haven equipped with an array of paranormal investigation tools. They spent several nights exploring the hotel's nooks and crannies, interviewing staff and guests about their experiences. Many recounted stories of unexplained noises, flickering lights, and cold spots. During their investigation, Sarah unearthed historical records revealing a tragic fire that had ravaged the hotel in the early 1900s. Several guests and staff members had perished in the blaze, their bodies never recovered. The records indicated that the grand staircase where Robert had taken the eerie photo was a focal point of the fire. Haunted by these revelations, Sarah and Robert delved deeper into the hotel's past, uncovering tales of lost souls and unfinished business. They conducted a seance, hoping to communicate with the spirits and provide them the closure they sought. Gathered in the hotel's grand ballroom, Sarah, Robert, and the team sat around a table, candles flickering as they called out to the spirits. The air grew heavy, and an icy draft swept through the room. Suddenly, a faint voice echoed, recounting the final moments before the fire. The spirit, identifying herself as Emily, a former maid at the hotel, spoke of her love for a guest who had also perished. She described their plan to meet at the staircase before fleeing the fire, a plan tragically cut short by the swift-moving flames. Moved by Emily's story, Sarah and Robert organized a memorial service at the hotel. They invited guests and staff to honor the memories of those lost in the fire. As they read out the names and laid flowers at the base of the grand staircase, a sense of peace seemed to settle over the room. Following the service, the atmosphere at Mount Haven noticeably changed. Guests reported fewer disturbances, and the eerie feeling that had long pervaded the hotel began to dissipate. Years later, Robert often reflected on his experiences at Mount Haven. The photo he had taken remained a curious memento, a reminder of his brush with the supernatural. The hotel, now a thriving destination, continued to attract visitors, many unaware of its haunted past. For Robert, the encounter was a profound lesson in the mysteries of the world, the lingering presence of the past, and the enduring power of love and loss. As he gazed at the photo, he couldn't help but smile, remembering the laughter and the chills, the questions and the answers that Mount Haven had given him. The Phantom of Cricket, a heartfelt encounter. In Lancaster, Ohio, Sarah recalls a poignant story from her childhood that continues to haunt and comfort her. As she tells on Monsters Among Us, her family's beloved dog, Cricket, was a source of mixed emotions. Cricket was quite an unhappy dog, Sarah explains. She was always cranky and had a special fondness for my grandma, but she didn't seem to be in good health. Despite Cricket's grumpy demeanor, the family cherished her deeply. Their hearts were shattered when Cricket, while they were preparing to leave for a long-awaited family vacation, darted into the road and was struck by a passing car. It was incredibly sad and upsetting, especially for me as a child. My grandma had a unique bond with Cricket, one that none of us really shared. Faced with the tragedy and having already prepaid for their vacation, the family decided to go ahead with their plans. They entrusted Cricket's care to an aunt who kindly agreed to manage the necessary arrangements. The family set off, their spirits dampened by grief, and arrived at their destination with heavy hearts. One night at the hotel, Sarah, overwhelmed by the sorrow of losing Cricket, was jolted awake from her sleep. "I'm not sure what woke me up, but I sat up in bed and looked down," Sarah recounts. To her astonishment, there on the floor was Cricket, an unmistakable full-body apparition. Seeing her was surreal. Cricket looked vibrant and joyful, a stark contrast to her usual cranky self. She was jumping around, her usual unhappiness gone. It was as if she had come to reassure me that she was okay, Sarah describes. It was the clearest apparition I've ever seen. I've never had a similar experience since then. The following morning, Sarah shared her extraordinary sighting with her mother, who gently suggested it might be a product of her grief-stricken imagination. "It's possible," Sarah acknowledges, "but the image of Cricket remains vivid in my memory. It brought me a sense of peace, seeing her so happy and at ease. I truly believe she was visiting me that night." Sarah's encounter with the Phantom of Cricket has left an indelible mark on her. The experience not only provided solace during a difficult time, but also became a cherished memory of a beloved pet who seemed to transcend the boundaries of life and death. The vision of Cricket's joyous spirit remains a comforting reminder of the love and connection that endures even after we've said our goodbyes. The phantom lights of the ambulance. In the mid-1990s, Robert, a dedicated paramedic working in a small rural Texas town, encountered a baffling and unnerving phenomenon that would leave him and his partner questioning reality. One fateful night, they received an urgent call about a woman experiencing severe chest pains. Without the aid of modern GPS technology, Robert and his partner had to rely on their old paper maps and mailbox numbers to locate the remote address. "We responded code 3 with our sirens blaring and emergency lights flashing," Robert recalls. The night was exceptionally dark, with no streetlights to illuminate the road ahead. Navigating in those conditions was incredibly challenging, and reading the mailbox numbers was nearly impossible. As they drove through the dense darkness, they struggled to find the correct driveway. After a prolonged search, Robert decided to turn off the sirens to better hear any potential directions or clues. When they thought they had finally found the right driveway, they pulled in, only to discover they were mistaken. They quickly reversed and headed back to the road to search again. After a tense period of searching, they eventually located the correct driveway and arrived at the scene. To their astonishment, the address seemed hauntingly familiar. They had been to this exact location just a month prior for a male patient who had suffered a cardiac arrest. In a moment of grim humor, Robert and his partner speculated, "Maybe this is the wife of the man we treated last month. She's having a heart attack and will soon join him." Despite the dark joke, they got to work. Fortunately, the woman was stable, and Robert instructed his partner to retrieve the stretcher from the ambulance for transport to the hospital. As they worked, Robert noticed something that gave him chills. The ambulance was ablaze with light. Strobe lights, floodlights, and interior lights were all illuminated. When my partner came back with the stretcher, I noticed the ambulance lights were on full blast, Robert explains. I asked him why the lights were on, but he looked puzzled and told me he hadn't touched them. We had both turned off all the lights after realizing we were at the wrong address. Robert and his partner distinctly remembered shutting off all the lights and emergency signals when they initially arrived at the incorrect location. The sudden illumination at the correct address, with no explanation for how it happened, was deeply unsettling. Neither of us could recall activating the lights when we arrived at the actual address, Robert says. There was no logical reason for them to be on. We had already found the correct location and were prepared to assist. The strange occurrence left Robert and his partner grappling with their beliefs. They eventually concluded that the unexplained activation of the lights might be connected to the supernatural. We joked that it was the spirit of the deceased man trying to let his wife know he was still present, Robert reflects. This eerie encounter remains a profound and mysterious experience for Robert and his partner. It serves as a haunting reminder of the unexplained phenomena that occasionally disrupt their lives, adding an unsettling layer to their otherwise routine work. The phantom lights of the ambulance continue to be a source of intrigue and speculation, reminding them of the mysteries that lurk just beyond the edge of understanding. The haunted legacy of Shawshank Penitentiary. The Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, stands as a monument to both cinematic glory and a dark, unsettling history, known to millions for its role as the filming location of the iconic movie The Shawshank Redemption. This imposing structure was much more than a mere backdrop for Hollywood. Its corridors and cells witnessed a parade of human suffering, violence, and despair, which have left an indelible mark on its atmosphere. Though the reformatory was officially closed in 1990, the tales of its haunted past continue to captivate and terrify those who dare to explore its shadowy halls. The reformatory, originally designed to house and reform the most hardened criminals, became infamous for its harsh conditions and brutal treatment of inmates. Built in the late 19th century, the facility was a stark example of the penal philosophy of the time, which often favored punishment over rehabilitation. The prison cells were a far cry from the sanctuaries of reform they were intended to be. Instead, they became places of torment and tragedy, where prisoners experienced unimaginable suffering. Theresa Argy, an esteemed author and paranormal investigator known as the Haunted Housewife, has dedicated much of her career to uncovering the darker side of the reformatory's legacy. The reformatory was a crucible of violence and despair, Argy tells Today.com. From the very beginning, it seemed to harbor an unsettling energy. You can feel it, this almost tangible aura of negativity that pervades the entire building. It's as if the suffering of its inhabitants has seeped into the very walls. Among the myriad ghost stories associated with the reformatory, some of the most compelling have involved female spirits who appear to have left a lasting impression on the building. One particularly poignant story revolves around the wife of a former warden. This woman's tragic death came about when she was accidentally shot while retrieving a box from a high shelf in a closet. The haunting of her spirit is marked by a series of strange occurrences. Investigators have recorded sorrowful cries that seem to emanate from an invisible presence, and the scent of rose perfume occasionally wafts through the air in the bedroom once occupied by the warden. Another spectral entity said to haunt the reformatory is a woman who is often seen weeping in the prison chapel. Witnesses describe her as sitting alone in a pew, her sobs echoing through the silent space. As visitors approach, she vanishes without a trace, though some have reported glimpsing her walking through the chapel in a ghostly, ethereal form. Yet, not all spirits associated with the reformatory are benign. Among the most disturbing accounts is that of a particularly malevolent presence that has terrorized both staff and visitors. Argy recounts her own harrowing experiences with this angry spirit, which was known for its aggressive and profane outbursts. When we engaged with this entity, it would hurl curses and threats at us, Argy recalls. The aggression was palpable, and it felt as though the spirit was channeling all its anger and rage through its words. The situation took a terrifying turn when the malevolent spirit began to follow Argy's partner beyond the confines of the reformatory. The haunting escalated to the point where the spirit's shadowy figure was seen through a reflection in Argy's partner's window. She immediately recognized the shadowy figure as the spirit we had been dealing with, Argy explains. The fear and dread were overwhelming, and it became clear that this entity was not confined to the prison. In response to the escalating hauntings, Argy sought the expertise of a paranormal specialist to help address the presence of the malevolent spirit. We brought in an expert to help us understand and manage the situation, Argy says. Since then, we haven't encountered the aggressive spirit again. The intervention seemed to offer a respite from the tormenting presence, though the experience left a lasting impression on all involved. The Ohio State Reformatory continues to be a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts and skeptics alike, its dark history and spectral legends providing a rich tapestry for exploration. The juxtaposition of its cinematic fame with its haunted reputation ensures that the Reformatory remains a place of fascination and fear. The stories of its restless spirits, from sorrowful apparitions to malevolent entities, contribute to the building's mystique, ensuring that its legacy as a site of ghostly encounters endures. As visitors and investigators continue to delve into the Reformatory's shadowy past, the stories of its haunted halls serve as a chilling reminder of the lingering echoes of the past, forever etched into the fabric of this historic and haunted location. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share the video. See you next time.